Well, here we are. We have ourselves a number of Montreal Canadiens stories to dive into, and a lot of them have to do with three of the youngest guys on the team to be. You see, we already made videos talking about Ivan Demidov and Alexander Zharovsky. In fact, that's a video that we made yesterday. We spoke about Bob Hartley's comments on Alexander Zharovsky and how the young Russian Canadiens prospect compares to Ivan Demidov. But it turns out we actually have more to discuss when it comes to these two and their link. We have conversations to have about Lane Hutson and his role in talking about Ivan Demidov and Demidov's upcoming contract negotiations and where the Montreal Canadiens go from here. Because we have ourselves some commentary made by each of these guys that I think we need to dive into today. Let's head over onto what Arpon Basu said on Twitter. Ivan Demidov will spend his summer in Montreal again, and he has invited Alexander Zharovsky to Montreal to train for at least part of the summer. Demidov says Zharovsky is supposed to arrive here next week. Man, when you take an NHL player who is so young, who is so good, who is so talented, and who is so skilled, and who is this, and who is that, and who had, by all accounts, a great first season in the National Hockey League. Ivan Demidov had 62 points in 82 games in the regular season and 9 points in 19 playoff games. This guy's made the playoffs every single time he's suited up in an NHL season, by the way. When you have a player who is that young, at 20 years old, deciding for himself, yeah, I'm staying here in the city. Russia? Screw Russia. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to chill. I'm going to be in Quebec. I'm going to train here. I'm going to work out with my buds. And I'm going to bring my other buddy over here. My childhood friend and a guy who also happens to be a part of the same franchise. Alexander Zharovsky is a guy the Montreal Canadiens just happened to have drafted in the second round last year. And as we had noted in our video yesterday, if the Canadiens had one of their two first-round picks that they ended up inevitably trading away to the Islanders, they may have taken Zharovsky with this 16th or 17th overall selection if they had a gun to their head and they were forced to actually use the pick. They liked Zharovsky so much that honestly might have happened. And if Zharovsky was taken in the first round of 2025, it would have been totally justified, considering his 42 points in 59 games played with Salavat Yuleyev this most recent season. He had 2 points in 10 playoff games, wasn't really all too utilized in the postseason, which is fine. At the end of the day, he was still a 19-year-old in the KHL. But now, Zharovsky is going to be getting his first taste, it seems, of Montreal training. The guy isn't even signed by the Habs at the time of recording this audio. And if I'm going to be real, I don't know if he is going to sign with the Canadiens anytime soon. His contract in the KHL seems like it goes until 2026, 2027, which means that he's got at least another year in Russia before making the jump over. Whether or not he'll make the jump over like Ivan Demidov did and just immediately play in the NHL, that's also something yet to be seen. I wouldn't be surprised if Alexander Zharovsky maybe needs to take a year or two in the AHL. It could be a few years before we see this guy actually have NHL action. For Ivan Demidov, it's like, oh, this guy was a 5th overall pick. He's one of the top players ever. He had the junior scoring record in the KHL. He's fine. Alexander Zharovsky, he's not there yet, but we shall see what time has in store for us. Meanwhile, we have ourselves some conversations about Demidov and Lane Hutson. As tweeted out by Marco D'Amico, take a look at this. Lane Hutson mentioned that he and Ivan Demidov have had conversations about Ivan's upcoming contract extension. Hutson's giving Demidov advice on how he handled the process. Mentions how excited he and Ivan are at the prospect of playing together in Montreal for the next decade. Man, for all this conversation that we have had about American superstar NHL players who want out of their Canadian teams. Obviously, there's been a pretty bad rep for a lot of these kinds of guys over the past few years, from Johnny Gaudreau to Matthew Tkachuk to Quinn Hughes and potentially Brady Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, and maybe even Connor Hellebuck. Lane Hutson is a guy that seems to be the total opposite of that. Lane Hutson and Cole Caulfield especially, guys that are interested and willing to being Montreal Canadiens for the long term. Now, I guess out of those examples that we had mentioned in the past, Johnny Gaudreau was like the easiest one to give him a pass because he didn't actually go to a team that he was projected to go to. He went to Columbus, and a lot of people were like, oh, interesting. He's really doing that for his wife, eh? What a great family man. Quinn Hughes and Matthew Tkachuk, it was like, yeah, no, they just hated Canada and they didn't want to come back. So Lane Hutson, total opposite of those NTDP guys. And to see him and his contract, which goes on till 2034 at $8.8 million a year, this is going to be one of the best contracts in the league. You could argue it already is. The fact that Lane Hutson's 22 years old, he's going to continuously get better. He already had a 78-point campaign, and now he had himself a 16-point playoff run in 19 games total. That's cracked. This guy's so darn good. And now he's talking to Ivan Demidov, one of his best buddies on the team, two guys that happen to be just obsessed with the sport of ice hockey, who are so willing to just talk about it all day long, go over the game tape, go over the players, go over the league, go over everything hockey related in their off-ice time. The fact that Ivan Demidov has a guy like Hutson to bond with over the next 8 years is a blessing. And I'm not even going to say it's a blessing in disguise. It's just a blessing. It's right there in the open, and we can all see it. So for Lane Hutson to be giving Ivan Demidov some contractual advice, that's obviously a pretty great thing to see. Also, we had to get the picture in there because Lane Hutson standing on a little bit of a box, him and his cool Nikes, and having all the microphones in his face over there too. We then have ourselves some more commentary. This is Ivan Demidov speaking about that contract extension. I want to stay here. Demidov confirms he wants to sign long-term with Montreal. Demidov confirms he would prefer his extension to be done in the summer to avoid any distractions at the start of camp. He wants to completely avoid the worst-case scenario of a Mason McTavish or a Jeremy Swayman or, goodness forbid, a William Nylander, where the contract discussions get so nasty that it ends up taking up a lot of time training and a lot of time with the team. Demidov, if he's a full team player, which at this point we have no reason to believe he isn't, he wants to get that contract done sooner. He wants to be able to sign long-term. Hopefully, him and his agent, they look at the standard of contracts that have been handed out to the Montreal Canadiens and they say, hey, this is the standard. You have Nick Suzuki making 7.8. You've got Cole Caulfield making 7.8. You've got Slavkovsky making 7.6. Ivan, you're not getting more than Suzuki. Ivan, you're not getting more than Cole Caulfield. You're going to get 7.5. And even if you want to use some of your other younger guys of contracts that were signed recently as comparisons, Lane Hutson's making 8.8. Noah Dobson's 9.5. You're not getting that $17 million Kirill Kaprizov deal. That's not something that's in the cards for you, Ivan. If Demidov can look at that situation and understand it wholeheartedly, take it, and move on with it, then that's going to be a really great element for Montreal and some good leverage as well for them in this contract negotiation. At the end of the day, it still is a negotiation, even though he wants to stay long-term, even though the Habs would have it in their best interests to keep Demidov long-term. I'm just interested in seeing what the number lands on, especially since Hutson's going out there and giving Demidov some pointers on how to handle the entire thing. So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Alexander Zharovsky coming over to Montreal to train with Ivan Demidov and hopefully Lane Hutson as well? Thoughts on the Hutson and Demidov connection and the fact that these guys are talking shop about contracts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.